Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making a simple and silky cream cheese frosting that you're gonna love. So let's get started. First off, I have my cream cheese and butter on the counter. They've been warming up for a little bit. I want them to be room temperature, not rock hard. That would be a nightmare. Now, the second part of this is somewhat optional, but you really wanna do it, especially if you're using any kind of piping tip. That's sifting the powdered sugar. I want 4 to 6 cups of powdered sugar. That's 480 to 720 grams. This frosting is basically foolproof. You're just adding sugar to taste. You need a minimum amount to kind of hold it together and give that sweetness to make it a frosting. And if you want this frosting to be a bit more structural and have some strength to it and not be slidey and gloopy, then you're gonna wanna have a little bit more sugar in there. Make sure you zero your scale without the sifter on it. All right, sift it up. I keep my powdered sugar in a canister, so I always know what's inside. When you open up a new bag, it's anyone's guess. It could be mostly like amazing, like a cloud of sugar, or it could be pure rocky lumps, in which case you need to sift, 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 because those lumps are gonna clog your piping tip, and honestly, no one wants to bite into a giant clump of sugar. Yuck. When you have powdered sugar or cornstarch in the kitchen, it's always gonna be like up in the air and creating a little bit of a mess. So you can forgive yourself. It happens to everybody, especially me. Okay, my sugar's all sifted up, no lumps are left inside. Now it's time to grab the mixer. I'm using a stand mixer with a paddle attachment, but you could definitely use a hand mixer with regular beaters. It'll work just fine. So even though this is called cream cheese frosting, there is still butter in it. If you just used cream cheese, it would be so delicious, but runny. The butter lets the cream cheese shine and actually function as a working frosting. You need your butter to be room temperature. You could press your finger in with a little bit of force, just like this, and you can even bend it so it's not going to be like super hard, but it's not melting into a puddle either. Just right. I have 2 sticks of butter in my hand, but I'm only using 170 grams or 3/4 of a cup. So take 1/2 of a stick and set it aside for something else. This goes into your stand mixer, fitted with a paddle attachment. If you're using a hand mixer with regular beaters, that's totally fine too. Cream the butter up. Medium speed for about 30 seconds, and if you use the microwave to melt your butter or any kind of shortcut, the center might have a little bit of hard butter that won't mix well. Creaming is just gonna fix that and make sure everything is nice and smooth. After just a little bit of mixing, it's time to add our cream cheese. I will be scraping the bowl down though. Stand mixers are very convenient, but you do have to scrape the bowl. Cream cheese frosting is delicious, but I want you to think of it as a blank canvas. A plain cream cheese frosting is great, but I want to show you some variations later on and make it really delicious. You can take it to the next level. 1 8-ounce block of cream cheese, 226 grams. This is nice and soft. It laid out for a while and it's not falling apart, but like the butter, I can press my finger in, it indents, it's nice. Mix that cream cheese on medium speed for about 2 minutes, and while it mixes, add in a pinch of salt, a little bit. And I'm also adding in a teaspoon of vanilla. This is a homemade batch. It is on its very last few drops, but I have more that's brewing up in my pantry. This brings me to one of my most important things I have to tell you on cream cheese frosting, and that's the liquid you add. You could add in a teaspoon of vanilla. You could add in a teaspoon of another extract if you wanted to, but when you start adding more liquid in, you're breaking the frosting down. Cream cheese is much softer than butter at room temperature, so if you want to use this for a cake where you're stacking anything, if you want to use this for frosting that's going to hold its shape, almost no liquid can be added. All right. This smells so good. I want to show you the texture, but I also need to scrape the bowl down one more time before the sugar goes in. Frosting needs to be homogeneous. It has to be the same throughout. If it's not, it's gonna be firmer on one side, lumpy on the other, runny, firm. It's gonna be a nightmare. It's not gonna taste the same throughout. I wanna show you this texture is so nice and firm. Once we start adding the sugar though, it's gonna loosen up. Sugar will make this more slack at first, and then we'll bring some structure back. So everything got mixed down. I did find some butter that was unmixed on the bottom, so I'm glad I did it. Now we're gonna add our powdered sugar, but do it in batches. This is gonna be a messy nightmare if you go at high speed or if you try and dump things in. Take your time, add a couple cups at first, and then mix and go on. You can make this frosting in advance. It keeps in the freezer for up to 3 months. Just thaw it overnight in the fridge and then let it come to room temperature. Give it a little mix and it's ready to use. You can also keep it in the fridge for up to 2 days to store in an airtight container. And that way, if you're making a dessert, you can make the frosting one day, make the cake or cupcakes the next, and assemble a third day or the second day. That way you can stage things out and get things done even if you're super busy. Mix on low. You don't want to pump a bunch of air into here. And if this was an American buttercream with just the butter and powdered sugar, it can be kind of firm. It can almost taste gritty, and to combat that, you're gonna add in a fair amount of cream, like a 1/4 cup, a 1/3 of a cup, even more. That'll make it more slack, more creamy, wonderful. This doesn't need that because the cream cheese has that water content. It has the cream, so that's already built in. You're just gonna add the sugar at this point. And now I have to show you. This was it before. Just 1.5 cups of powdered sugar went in. And it is so much more slack and loose. You see that? So the sugar really changed the consistency. Now we're gonna add some more sugar. It'll be perfectly sweet and get some of that texture back that we need so we can frost something with this. Okay. While it mixes, I'm gonna start talking about the flavorings. If you've only had cream cheese frosting from a bakery, first of all, it's gonna be so much better homemade because you're making it fresh. You're making it with better ingredients and it's made with love. But you can also add so many amazing things. Like the cream cheese frosting in my cookbook with my chocolate carrot cake has a secret addition of orange zest. And just adding orange zest to cream cheese frosting transforms it into one of the most delicious things you've ever had. Just zest 1 or 2 oranges, plop that inside, add that in at the beginning when the butter and cream cheese are getting mixed up. You'll agitate all the zest and it'll release some of the oils into the frosting. The same thing goes for lemon zest. You could make it a lemon zingy cream cheese frosting. It'll be delicious. If you want to go a non-citrus route, oh my gosh, the spices you can add to this are endless. If I was making a cream cheese frosting for a pumpkin cake or a pumpkin loaf, I would definitely add in 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. You could add 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie mix, allspice, nutmeg, cardamom, any of your favorite spices are gonna work. I go with 1/4 teaspoon and then add up. You can just add more and keep tasting until it's that perfect desired consistency. This is getting close. I'm adding in the rest of the powdered sugar right now. This will take me to 4 cups. I'm using the bare minimum in this. I'm not making a layer cake, and I like my frosting on the less sweet side. So 4 cups is just fine, but if you want to add more, just keep adding it until it's the desired taste and consistency that you enjoy. In this recipe, I used plain unsalted butter, but if you want to step things up and add an extra layer of flavor in, use some browned butter. Brown butter is just butter that's been cooked over low heat, stirring occasionally until the butter takes on a caramel color and it gets this wonderful nutty depth of flavor. It's a secret ingredient for pastas, for frostings, for cakes, and honestly, in the fall and the winter, I just cook a big batch of it, keep it in these little containers, and use it as needed. It's wonderful in this frosting. If you want to turn this cream cheese frosting into the most amazing chocolate fantasy, reduce the sugar to 2 3/4 cup or 3 cups. Just, you basically want to make it a little bit less sweet, and then add in 1/2 cup of cocoa powder. Make sure that's sifted because it'll be pure lumps. You could add it in at any stage and it's going to be amazing. You will never go back once you've had chocolate cream cheese frosting. It is so good. My sugar's all in. It's time to take a taste test and see if things are as I would like. First of all, oh my gosh, that consistency, look at that beautiful little peak you get. That is really nice and strong. We barely added the 4 cups that was needed of sugar. Let's take a taste. That is so good. It's dangerously delicious. It is similar to, but not the same as regular frosting, and I want to show you what to do and how to use it. So put it to the side, and I'm going to grab a piping tip to take it to work. I just so happen to have a couple of cupcakes hanging around, including these amazing strawberry ones. They'll be perfect with a big dollop of cream cheese frosting. So here's the deal for piping. This might look perfect, but as your hand warms the bag up, it'll get runny. If that happens, pop your bag into the fridge for a few minutes, just let it hang out, come back to it, and you'll be fine. If you don't mind it being runny and a bit bloopy and gloopy, just keep going. You could just have a big swoop of frosting and it'll be delicious. When you pipe, however, just acknowledge that gravity will really affect your cream cheese frosting more than a regular frosting. So press it out, give it a couple swirls, lift, and just like that, there we go. If, however, you're like, oh, it's a little bit off center, or I wish it had been like more straight, you can just tap it down or up and it'll change shape. So it's fairly wobbly at first, and you can take advantage of that and just tap it to the left, tap it to the right, and eventually it'll be a perfect dollop. It's one of the things that annoys me the most as a baker. Anything you cover with cream cheese frosting needs to live in the refrigerator. It's full of dairy, so it could be out for a little bit before you serve it, but if it's out for too long, the dairy will spoil and you'll feel so bad if your friends get sick, right? So in the refrigerator you go. For a pumpkin cake or cupcake, I'm definitely using my pumpkin pie spice mixture. This adds such a lovely flavor and it complements the pumpkin perfectly. That is just plain delightful, perfectly sweet, tangy, creamy, and amazing. I hope you get a chance to make this recipe, and if you like this video, check out my frosting playlist.